네. 네, IDCC는 서울대학교 디자인학부에서 매년 가을에 개최되는 국제 디자인 컨퍼런스입니다. 그래서 매년 저희는 그 세계적인 디자이너 그리고 연구자님들을 초청을 해서 여러분들과 디자인에 대한 현안과 어떤 그 앞으로 미래의 디자인의 가능성을 같이 나누고 있습니다. 그래서 올해의 주제는 디자이너 매터리얼이라는 소재를 디자인하는 것에 대한 것입니다. 네, 오늘 이렇게 보니까 그 굉장히 많은 학생들과 그리고 또 저희 이제 교수님들 그리고 학장님들까지 이제 많이 참석을 해주셨는데요. 그래서 귀한 시간 내주신 만큼 굉장히 깊은 배움의 장이 되길 바라겠습니다. 네, 저희가 본격적인 강연에 앞서서 먼저 디자인학부의 학부장이신 한정용 학부장님께서 개회사를 해주시겠습니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 디자인학부 학부장 한정용입니다. 네, 코로나로 그동안 온라인에서 학술대회를 개최하다가 올해 정말 오래간만에 얼굴을 뵙고 인사드립니다. 저는 개회사를 맡은 서울대학교 디자인학부 디자인 학부장을 맡고 있는 한정용입니다. 네. 오늘 미술관으로 오면서 보니 가을이 왜 풍요와 결실의 계절인지 알 것 같습니다. 이렇게 화창하고 아름다운 가을에 올해 20주년을 맞이하는 IDCC 개회를 알리게 되어 매우 기쁘게 생각합니다. 인터내셔널 디자인 컬처 컨퍼런스 국제 디자인 문화 학술 회의의 약자인 IDCC는 2003년 공존을 주제로 처음 시작되어 오늘에 이르게 되었습니다. 이번 주제는 디자이너 매터리얼입니다. 오늘의 디자인은 혁신적 실험과 본질적인 탐구를 위해 소재가 매우 중요합니다. 이번 이야기를 해주시는 10분의 디자이너 연구자들과 함께 다양한 가능성에 대한 영감을 얻고 또 같이 이야기하는 기회가 되기를 바랍니다. 오늘 진행되는 강연은 유튜브를 통해 동시에 실시간 스트리밍되는 하이브리드 형식으로 진행되고 있습니다. 그리고 내일 오전에는 사전 녹화된 강연이 한글 자막과 함께 제공되어 진행될 예정입니다. 강연 진행과 동시에 유튜브 실시간 채팅으로 강연자와 Q&A가 진행되니 많은 참여 부탁드립니다. 오늘 이 자리에 참석하신 분들과 유튜브 중계를 보시는 모든 분들의 건강과 행운이 가득하시기를 기원합니다. 그리고 IDCC를 위해 세계 각국에서 먼 길 와주신 연사님들께 깊은 감사의 말씀 드립니다. 2일 동안 아름다운 서울대학교 캠퍼스에 깊어가는 가을을 만끽하시고 디자인에 대한 많은 생각을 하는 시간이 되기를 바라겠습니다. 네, 감사합니다.
네, 다음은 저희 미술대학의 학장님이신 김성희 학장님께서 축사를 해주시겠습니다. 박수로
안녕하십니까. 2022년 IDCC 개최를 진심으로 축하드립니다. 바쁘신 와중에도 참석해 주신 교수님과 학생들 그리고 내외 귀빈 여러분들께 진심으로 감사드립니다. IDCC는 올해 20회를 맞는 학술 행사로서 그동안 동시대의 다양한 디자인 이슈들을 고민하고 그리고 디자이너, 기업가, 작가, 연구자들을 초청하였으며 서울대학교 미술대학의 학생들은 물론 예비 디자이너와 예술가들에게 배움과 인사이트를 나누었고 또 디자인 교육에도 크게 이바지했습니다. 금년 컨퍼런스는 소재를 디자인하는 것에 대한 시의 적절한 주제를 선택하셨습니다. 기술의 발달은 혁신적인 실험을 가능케 하고 디자이너들은 이전보다 더 본질적인 탐구에 집중하고 있습니다. 이러한 결과로 디자인의 프로세스가 기존의 방식을 벗어나며 많은 변화가 나타나고 있고 이러한 변화 속에 소재에 대한 관심도 점점 증가하고 있습니다. 디자인에서 소재는 사물의 기능과 표현의 변화를 이끌어온 핵심 요소로서 새로운 소재들을 활용한 디자인을 통하여 이전에 불가능했던 기능 그리고 다양한 형태 및 표현 방법들을 창의적인 디자인 결과물로 창작하고 있습니다. 또한 기존의 상식이나 고정관념을 넘은 소재는 사람의 두뇌와 오감을 자극하고 인간의 삶을 기능적으로 그리고 정서적으로 풍요롭게 만들고 많은 영향력을 끼칩니다. 이번 IDCC 행사에서는 소재에 대한 다양한 관점을 가지고 작업하시는 전문가들께서 함께 해주시고 계십니다. 강연을 통해 소중한 비전과 지혜를 나눠주실 아무송 연사님, 요한 룰린 연사님, 요나스 에드버드 연사님, 그리고 허미숙 연사님께 깊은 감사의 말씀을 올립니다. 마지막으로 컨퍼런스를 개최하신 디자인 학부와 BK 사업단 그리고 참석하신 모든 분들께 감사드리고 오늘 이 자리가 대한민국의 예비 디자이너 그리고 예술가들을 키워내는 소중한 자리가 되길 바랍니다. 미술관의 이번 전시가 소소하지 않는 일상전입니다. 제 생각에 소재는 일상에 널려 있다고 생각됩니다. 소소하지 않는 소재에 대한 많은 영감들을 주고받는 자리가 되시길 바랍니다. 앞으로도 IDCC의 무궁한 발전을 기원합니다. 감사합니다.
네, 이제 본격적인 강연에 들어가겠는데요. 저희가 강연 후에는 또 강연자와의 Q&A 시간이 마련돼 있습니다. 그러니까 강연을 보시면서 궁금하신 거를 생각하셨다가 강연이 끝난 후에 질문을 해주시면 좋겠습니다. 네, 첫 번째 강연을 해주실 연사님은 핀란드의 헬싱키에 기반을 둔 디자인 그룹입니다. 컴퍼니라는 그룹인데 여기 아무송 그리고 요한 올린 연사님을 모시겠습니다. 이 연사님들께서는 지난 15년간 재료에 대한 연구의 과정 중에 비밀의 일부를 오늘 여러분들께 공개를 해주신다고 하십니다. 네, 그러면 우리 그 연사님들을 큰 박수로 맞아주시기를 바랍니다.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. 마스크 벗어도 된다 그랬는데 벗을까요? 이렇게 생겼습니다.
Thank you for having us.
네, thank you so much for inviting us. We will do in English, but if you feel like, oh, what are they talking? 잘 못 알아듣겠으면 약간 이렇게 해주면 저는 한국 사람이니까 제가 빨리 한국말로 막 해드릴게요.
So, my name is Johan Olin.
My name is 아무송, 한국말로 송희원입니다.
So we are designers, artists, and also shopkeepers.
We are in front of our shop, very serious. We don't want to sell, that's why we are like, go away.
So this is where I was born, this funny northern small country called Finland, and that's where we are nowadays based.
That's like central fish market. There's one customer.
And this is Amo.
Yes, this is where I'm from. I studied actually here started 93, and when I moved to Finland in 98, I really missed Korea, of this part of Korea. The manujal, scaring teachers, 포장마차, and doing homework in metro. Nobody do this in Finland, so I really missed this part of Korea.
Sorry about the picture quality, but I think this was in the 90s, so I think this was very good quality pictures back then. This is how we met. This is a project Aamo actually brought with her to Finland.
The jacket name is Jacket for Lonely People. 한국말로는 심심할 때 입는 옷.
It's made of Velcro strips, so the idea is that you wear it, you find like-minded people wearing the same jacket, and you get actually physically together.
So you don't have to shout, I'm 심심해, but you wear this and you meet 심심한 사람 each other. And when I show this in Finland, everyone say, oh, that should be national costume. They are all Finnish people are lonely, and this was shown in very many exhibitions as a Finnish design.
And this is what we've been interesting about, how to bring people together. This is a project called Red Dress. It's one dress for one performer and 238 people in the hemlines of the dress.
Yeah, I don't like actually this stage. We are here, you are there, like we are so far away. Like I'm not connected. So when I'm in concert hall, I really wanted to be connected with performer. So that idea grew this project, and our world premiere was in Louisiana, Denmark.
So this is also adults become like kids when they go under the hemlines and peep what's happening underneath there. And the dress has been touring in many places, and we are also we are a bit like a circus family. When there's a concert, we pack our things together with dressmaker, and we travel and carry the dress. It weighs only 1.5 tons, and set it up and collaborate a lot with musicians.
Yes. Often musician, but sometimes a lecture, sometimes 천문학자 tells how the world is born, and many different performer in the middle.
So when we started, we collaborated a lot with museums, musicians, different kind of institutes. But as designers, we were kind of curious of what kind of things we actually still manufacture in Finland. It felt on those times that everything was made, by globalization, wherever you happen to have best possibilities.
It was 2006. Mic is off. It was 2006. We had a Nokia in Finland. So everything was Nokia, and every little factory was moving out from Finland to other country. So we were so curious where actually our 생필품 is made, who makes them. So we started a journey.
Again, toured around Finland, knocked on a manufacturer's door and found, for example, this is Eero Lahtinen, here putting sheep wool into sheet making machine, carding it, and they cut this in a big boot shape. It's sewn together, and then you tumble and shrink the felt, put a last inside, and this is how you make Finnish felt boots.
So we were.
Oh, this we will fix it. So.
So it was so perfect shoes, so perfect winter shoes, but we wanted to do something. So what we did was we connected baby size shoes with the big size shoes, making dancing shoes for father and daughter to dance. And this is actually one of my favorite pieces, because when you see these shoes, you remember the moment, and so you don't have to buy. But anyway, people buy and dance.
Yes, buy sometimes. So this is what we started to do. We knocked on the doors of manufacturers. Here we went to see an underwear maker.
내복 공장.
Very comfortable underwear, mixture of wool and silk.
They call it like, we are making sex killer.
They specialize in bit elder ladies' underwear. They mainly make it in black and white, so we combined this very warm underwear and made penguin wear.
Penguin 내복. So it's like penguin tolerate chewy cold very well, so you wear this and very warm.
Again for the whole family.
And so the factory was so afraid, what? This will not sell, but this is, every family member buys it. The ajumma buys for her husband, and she said, it's very cute, my husband looks like penguin when they wear
It
this."
emphasizes the stomach area very nicely, being white. Another factory, Finns are very practical, so they make workwear. This is a factory that makes, you know, construction workers wear with a lot of utilitarian pockets and such.
And they are mainly for men, and I thought women are working harder, and why we don't have working dress. So we made this version that you can put all the tools, and fabric is like super durable working men's cotton.
And to forest, where we have a couple, Eija and Sirkka, who are toy makers, and their kind of way of life, they work upstairs, live downstairs.
They get the material from nearby factory, the waste, they use their the furniture industry waste and making toy, and as an exchange they give their eggs to the factory. And so their lifestyle inspired us to make a puzzle.
And landscape of Finnish countryside and cityscape. This is birch bark, the skin of the birch bark master Pertti Junninen. We've been collaborating, a very traditional way of making Finnish baskets.
자작나무 껍질. This is like almost like leather, and they make like shoes. It's like semi-waterproof, semi-heat-proof, and very holy material. It used to be very common, but nowadays it's very expensive, and not many people do it.
But we made this version for a bit more contemporary life, so it's like a small bag that you can keep items and have a leather strap that you can have it around your shoulder.
He usually make big basket for 시장 바구니 and milk carton, but we made it narrow for like modern city people.
But we toured a lot Finland, but there's still something more.
This is one of my favorite Finnish crafts, that when the baby is born, grandfather go basement and turn the wood and make a mushroom store. It used to be very common, but that tradition is dying, and one company could make it with us, so grandfathers came to our shop and bought this, but this factory closed. So when the factory closed the door, we closed the product, because all our ideas and designs are born while we make a factory tour and discuss with the factory master, drinking coffee, and then we developed ideas. So this is...
So it kind of belongs both to us and both the maker. But enough about Finland. We didn't feel like we have to represent somehow Finland.
Yes, I'm not even Finn. Oh, but yeah, we... But anyway, with all that work, we made an exhibition in very prestigious contemporary art museum. They wanted us to make art exhibition, but we collected all these items we found in Finland countryside and made a very special work. And our installation was like a shop, and our exhibition name was Secret of Finland. So people are very confused. Are you museum shop or are you exhibition? And we were sitting always there as a performance. So it was really confusing, and also once in a month we were selling our things as performance. And then people start call us secret shop. And here we are, we've been having secret shop for 15 years.
Yeah. But after sitting the whole summer in that shop, we got really bored. So we went to Korea to see if there must be some manufacturers there as well.
Yes, and while we are in Korea, we eat. It's so delicious, and we got so much ideas about things.
So this was very straightforward. We were just hungry and got inspired and made a lot of food-related items. Like this one, it's bibimbap. It's a little bit like a bed of rice with different colored pockets where you can keep different items.
Keys and cigarettes and different things.
Same logic. This is called the banchan bag. Also, good memory rule, what you put to wear. And we welded a banchan song. You are always certain to have a lot of banchan at the same time.
Everybody worries, how do you make a 설거지? But don't worry, we just made one as an art piece. So.
Noodle shoes maybe doesn't need any explanation. It's noodles, it's shoes. 자동차 pang
Yes.
it's car shoes.
So when you walk going home, you can do forever Formula One competition. Like Kimi, Shumi.
Yeah, they were hot names back in 2007. Michael Schumacher and Kimi Räikkönen. Something Finnish ergonomics introduced. At least at that time, Seoul was known as the high heel capital of the world.
And Seongsu was full of high heel factories. Is there still a lot of high heel factories? Oh, still.
Yes.
Whoa.
So this was called double heels to keep safe high heel walking.
I cannot wear high heel, but I can wear this and run very fast.
That's success then. And still Gomushin shoes, something new meets something old, Gomushin with contemporary sneaker.
Sold out.
Well, anyway, between us, between Finland and Korea,
Yes.
there's only one country
Russia.
and lots of Russia. So 2012, I think, we set on a long journey to see what kind of traditions and what kind of traditional manufacturing this country has.
And now it's very hard time, but even back then, nobody wanted to help us, so we had very small budget and traveling cheapest way as possible.
Getting to know the local culture while we are there. We usually spend a month or two longer journeys and eventually found some makers. Went again, knocked on the doors, and we were always really warmly welcome. And we got straight hands-on. We were shown how items are made, and we got to test ourselves. And as we started, or as our process goes, after we think, and only after we think that we've learned something, made great friends as well.
My dear friends.
So then we started to suggest what we could do together.
And because back then they had no email in Russia, so we had to really make design while we are there, and it takes like 20 hours to reach one factory. So every night we design or we make a new suggestion to show them, and we don't speak Russian at all, so we just had to draw everything to kind of convince them to try out something new.
So it was good that we have a background as designers, at least we are capable of drawing ideas down. This was one with the Matryoshka factory. It's telling a story in a form of these nesting dolls. So this is called sea Matryoshka. There would be a whale, and the whale would eat the seal, that eats the penguin, eats the fish, eats the calamari, the sea cucumber, and then plankton gets it in the end.
Technical drawing.
Matryoshkas are like onions, so this is a story of peeling an onion. We did something else as well with kind of inspired or informed by Matryoshkas. This is illustrating or an homage of all the Russian ladies that actually run the country and keep the country running.
Yeah, when we visit factory or company, the front man is male, but behind the scene, it's only women who are really working and carving the wood. And this is our homage to these babushka, Russian ladies, supporting, keeping their countries up.
It would be good if the politicians and leaders would be ladies as well, so we wouldn't have this horrible situation going on now. The bears of the world. And lots of fruits. Mama with baby birds, they all ate something, some different kind of worms and seeds. Or a snake that ate a mouse that also ate insects. Or a whole family of animals that can live inside one tree.
We got so hooked on seeing the world with Matryoshka way, storytelling, shaping. And when we the reason is that when we bring new drawing, if we bring something with like a common or like normal, they say, "Is that all?" Like, so when we bring something challenging, the masters are like, "Okay." They got so excited and tell us at the end, "We never made this before, but it feels like this belonged to us." So that was the biggest compliment.
So drawing became very important ever since. And it's the Matroska family is just growing and growing and growing. But let's introduce quickly like who makes matroshkas, how it's made. This is Master Alexander. You use linden wood, lime tree, not totally dried. So when it's soft, you carve it empty. The next layer is Mrs. Kruglova here, putting potato starch, bathing the dolls and drying them before paint is applied so that it stays crisp on the surface of the tree. And masters usually they paint one part of the doll before moving it to the next one.
We were very curious why one person is not painting all, and they say then you do self-expression. That is not good product.
But we tried ourselves. It is true. It's more of a choreography and a dance with your hand that you get it done. If you think too much what you are doing, it really becomes something else. Then you lacquer it, several layers. Finally, you polish the bottom to make it stay upright. And we made this homage to all of these makers you just met. It's called Masters of Matroshka. So there's Alexander and Kruglova and Napilova and everybody. And in the end, there's the traditional matroshkas. And travel ever since became very important. So next we are going to take a train to Japan, to northern Japan, where actually matroshkas also originate just 100 years ago from a tradition of kokeshi dolls.
Yeah, it's like Russia symbol is matroshka, but it's only 100 years old. They got inspired by Japanese doll and start to make their own tradition.
And this is Master Igarashi Toshiyuki, who is 88 or he still makes kokeshi dolls. And the kind of techniques, the ritual-like time-taking processes that the craftsmen put into the crafts started to interest us. And digging a bit deeper, we decided that yes, when the master makes an item, he really puts a spirit into the product. And this we kind of wanted to illustrate in all of the products that we made within this project.
Yeah, so instead just making product, we start to make a spirit of that product we design.
So here is one piece, a set of wood, and the spirits that accompany it illustrate also the making process of the of the craft.
Yeah, so when we try to explain this to Finnish or Europeans, are they ghosts or what is it like spooky thing? But Japanese understood very well. Okay, this is the spirit of the product, and I'm sure Koreans we understand. Like 장인이 만들 때 뭔가 혼을 담는다 그런 의미. Yeah, I think we know. This is common sense in Korea.
We Finns are a bit simple-minded. Maybe there's no space for spirits in our thinking. We are very practical.
So for the exhibition opening, we asked the volunteer explaining the spirit of the product, and they're like, "Oh yeah, of course, we know." And they were dancing, like it was like spirit matsuri, and then they were dancing in the opening ceremony.
Here was the spirits were present as a video projection in the exhibition. Another story takes us a bit to central Japan, to Nagano. It's Master Sunohara. He works with birch wood.
We really liked his work. He's doing farmer's art, 농민 art. When the 농민 has no much work in the winter, they carve the wood and make something and make extra money. and he's the one of the man who is making it, but they always make pigeon, and Nagano has not much pigeon, but they have lots of bear, so we suggest, let's make a bear. He said no. He only want to make the same pigeon, so it took really long time to make a nice bear painting presenting him until he says yes. And he really wanted to make this, and he's very happy.
So after we succeeded, we went to meet him after a few years to make more.
Because it was sold out.
Yeah, and just when we were leaving, we heard that he don't have tree anymore. He don't have big enough dried tree trunks to make the bear. It takes 3 years to dry the tree. So we bought an apple from the airport and took it with us to come up with something smaller what he could do.
So we don't speak Japanese, so this is how we communicated with him, with a real apple and carving with a knife. And he was again very excited to make.
Yeah, and after meeting him, we just maybe a month later, we received a letter having 3 printed photographs, no single text, but it showed image of this, and we knew that he managed to do it, and maybe someday we will get also these items to Helsinki.
Yes, it took 3 years to receive a 30 apple box.
Sometimes it's some of our masters, it sometimes takes a couple of years, but usually it is worth waiting. We always bring back a lot of souvenirs. We call them our idols, things that taught us something, or the items that the masters originally make. We always do exhibitions in the country or in the region where we are studying the craft tradition, and it's a kind of cultural or almost like anthropological study for us. And while doing this project, we realized that maybe this became a bit like our pilgrimage.
Yeah, and we got invitation from New York, very nice gallery called Storefront for Art and Architecture. Super nice space. It's better not to do anything, just empty space, so beautiful. So we really wanted to do something great there, and while we think what actually we are doing here, actually what we are doing, maybe it's like almost like religion. Why we do, the reason why we go to find the makers and learn the technique and try to imitate how they live. We want to live like them, and it's like religion. So we made a temple of manufacturing in New York, and it was amazing. Like even like firemen, New York firemen came to see, and they sit on this small stool and read the book or watching the things.
Yeah, the gallery boss she said that that installation with the glass balls, it will not break on the first day, but on the second day they will be broken. But somehow we maybe succeeded of making a temple, because people really, really quieted down when they came inside, even in the busy New York.
Yeah, it's like corner of Chinatown, Soho East Village. It was the most busy, crazy area, but this became really temple, and we are convinced that this is our religion.
We then still take you to Mexico, where we meet family Balbuena in Izúcar de Matamoros, I think. They make this fantastic tradition called Tree of Life, clay sculptures originating from the Catholic priests who were trying to teach things from the Bible, so they usually represented biblical events, but very often it was mixed with local indigenous beliefs. They
go to a mountain, volcano, and they get the clay from mountain and ferment the clay and make this. It's a one-woman factory, and we wanted to add our kind of way of living with her way of making things. This is called Marching to Heaven.
Tree of Friends. This is actually part of this museum's collection, which we are very, very happy.
This is like you, and you are supported by your friends. And this is how we communicate. We paint, and she answers.
Here is still same techniques, candle holder called the big face. This is the small face. This is the very, very small face. We call sometimes ourselves detectives, that we become quite good at finding makers, but quite often it's just, have to admit, it's just sheer luck. Like in this case, we've met one old Alebrihe, a wooden sculptor master from an old book, but we really had only the area where he is from, that we knew, the mountain name. So we called a taxi in the morning to our hotel, and our driver Ramiro came, and then it was a long 1-hour drive, and we don't really speak Spanish, but we kind of became friends and managed to tell him that we are looking this one old man who makes very personal sculptures, and maybe Ramiro started to like us, or I'm not sure. After half an hour he told that it's his grandfather that we are looking for. So that was quite a coincidence. This is Quirino Santiago Cruz and his wife Margarita, and together with them we made this Niño and Niña copal wood sculpture. And turns out to be that it's a big family. Quirino has a brother Martin, which we make this small sculpture with him. And Martin has a son and a grandson. And with Martin's son, we are making something usually left over from this process, but smaller branches, and making Alebrije sculptures out of them. So then we come back. This is again an image from an exhibition we had a few years ago in Helsinki, where all the masters are present as a video presentation, showing their techniques. And we were really thinking, how could we somehow, unite these masters? Could they work together? Could we all get them here with us? So we once again set on another journey with an idea of a project titled Universal Spirit. So it starts from Master Abo, who in Kuroishi makes us, following Kokeshi tradition, a universal doll. And we take that doll, we take it to Russia. This is Igor Napilev. He made clothing for our doll. We take the doll further on, again back to Mexico. We meet metal master Don Thomas, and he makes a kind of armor for our universal spirit. And we take our spirit back to Helsinki. There's our dog, by the way, Jaja. With Jaja, we go to central Finland, to Nuotajärvi Glass Factory, to work with glass masters Johannes and Alma, who mouth blow this aura to our spirit. This spirit and the kind of story, how it's made, became a central piece of this exhibition, where we built our own factory. We titled it the Holy Factory, where we had all of the masters representing the techniques we have seen before, coming all together in the center, in the universal spirit.
Because it's temple, we hand painted one by one and one by one. I still miss the time painting that wall.
And we actually then got the masters to be part of the temple, so they came there.
And our friend Thomas Toivonen connected machine to his machine, and the music happens, and all these people like us who loves design, crafts, art, it was like a rock festival, why we cannot celebrate, why we cannot coming up, we love design, we love art, why, it was amazing, it was one day 8,000 people gathered this room and watching him carving the wood, and it was insane experience.
This is Igor, he's the Matroska master. He maybe started a bit shy, but when he realized that he's actually making sound with his wood lathes, at the end he was really like a rock star, showing
Yeah, and throwing the piece to kids, okay, you get this.
And we are also kiosk keepers.
Yes, I love kiosk.
We have always made a lot of kiosks in our exhibitions, where we've sold these items. But then we have maybe the smallest shop in Helsinki. It's a self-standing kiosk that is a home for all of these creations, what we do, called the Secret Shop.
We've been keeping for 15 years, believe or not. We've been standing there inside, two of us in the beginning, and if somebody comes, we were like,
Really gonna buy this?
yeah, and if somebody buys, we were like, we are having party, like, yeah, it's selling. But nowadays, it was selling too much, and I was very negative about selling too much. So I always ask them, go back to think about, like, if it comes to your dream, come back. So I was fired from my own shop.
Yeah, she was sending people back home to think about it. But so the collection is growing all the time. Not like seasonal collections, but we maybe call them national collections.
Yes.
Country by country, it gets larger. We tend to make small items. You know, they have to fit into our tiny shop, so we can't make anything really, really big. And we also run a web shop. This is our
Previous
office.
studio,
Office. Yeah. Now we are located in this old sculpture studio in Helsinki.
Yeah, we are not defined as designer or shop owner or business people, or we don't know. From this atelier, we are a sculptor, so we are happy.
Happily undefined.
Yes.
So if anybody visits our web shops and orders something, it's either me or Aamu who climbs those ladders, gets the product, packs it here with the help of Yaya, our dog again, and then through that window, which is a little bit open, the delivery man comes to get the package, and then it goes to the world.
Yeah, so it's really literally two of us doing all this, and the web shop also packing by us.
So, final picture.
Yeah, as you see, travel is really our main thing. But last Corona times, how did you manage without traveling? We couldn't work, we couldn't really leave, so we traveled.
We set on this imaginary project. We titled it Secrets of Imagination Land, where we traveled only inside our heads and met all of the makers that we had ever dreamed to meet. And that became a book and an exhibition.
Yes, we made a book, and we will give the book to Chang-Sop professor, so if you are interested, ask Chang-Sop.
But thank you. Maybe, do we still have time?
Yeah.
It was 40 minutes. Then we still have 6 minutes. We maybe still show one video of this exhibition that we've been talking about here. That was in Helsinki 3 years ago already.
This sound is composed by or the factory sound. For me, this is a comforting sound, but maybe for some people this is like noise. We made like bazaar area, 시장 골목.
Celebrated by Mexican flags, a typical tradition in Mexico.
And many kiosks.
Since we are kiosk keepers, I think we made 10 kiosks for this exhibition, central space. That was a way that we could, by illustration, get all of the masters to be present in the exhibition.
When I hear this sound, I really miss that exhibition.
We always make these videos where we present the local traditions. Here we are pretending to be kind of original Finnish people, explaining the traditions, what we have. These are pictures from our shop that we set in the museum. That was a shop that you could not buy anything, but you could get a lot of information of the items that were displayed.
It had really everything what we've been making for 15 years, so it looked a bit like a strange shop. Yeah.
This is our world map. It's not so much of Paris, Milan, Helsinki, but small places, villages that are usually specialized traditionally in a certain manufacturing technique. So this was illustration of the makers' actual homes and factories, with lots of travel videos of our journeys to meet the makers. These were the boxes of the so-called idols, the kind of original idols that the masters usually do.
That sounds really like a noise. Maybe sound could it be a bit less? Thank you. Here we are communicating like I don't speak single Japanese, but I'm discussing with Japanese master. We really don't know how do we do this. Like he's telling me like why it's so funny to make this way, and I understand.
Actually, I think our practice is it's based on a big misunderstanding. We don't often understand each other, but sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's just it might create something new that you didn't think about if you misunderstand a bit.
Maybe you don't understand us now. Maybe it's okay. You just maybe feel something.
It's okay.
So this was like a box, the dancing shoes, how we start to make the samples. How did we like make the universal spirit?
So the exhibition basically introduced a lot of different techniques and
this
people
whole
behind.
set arrived in the opening day of exhibition. It was really scary whether it will fit each other. And
this shows a little bit the kind of, I don't know, like a Darwinian evolution, how many sketches usually there's behind the final sketch that then is good enough that we dare to give it to the master to show that would you be interested in trying something like this?
to make one sketch, as every designer knows, we make like 100 different versions and choose one. And
there was also a lot of letters in the walls that we usually send handwritten letters, especially once we worked with Amish community in USA, so they don't even use electricity, so all of the product development was done by a kind of a love letter exchange. A bit slow, but very nice.
When these masters, some of them visited this exhibition, they were really happy, or more than happy, that across the world we came all the way to Helsinki and finally we see us. Because they're always behind the product. They are never in front, but they were here as, like, we wanted to describe them as like icon painting, like our idols got. This is that holy factory we built. Everybody told us, like, it's impossible, we will build this hand painted, but I'm so happy
I think
did
we
this.
learned something from our craft masters, that we became like painting machines as well. So in the end, it was very doable.
Yeah, when the work is fun, it's never tiring. Don't need to like calculate how many hours, but it's just you can work as much you breathe.
But in the end, we've got to meet with so many fantastic masters, and I don't know, maybe the real secret is that this whole project is maybe just excuse that we get to visit wonderful places and meet wonderful people. So we'll keep on making this.
Yeah, maybe that's secret. Selfish.
Thank you so much.
고맙습니다.
네, 보는 내내 너무나 진짜 뭐 행복하고 웃음 지어지는 강연이었던 것 같아요. 이 사물 그 디자인 작품 하나하나에 담겨 있는 그런 스토리나 이렇게 영혼이 너무 소중한 것 같고 너무너무 잘 봤습니다. 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
네, 그리고 사실 보면서 이제 그 우리 학생 여러분들이 궁금한 점이 많았을 것 같은데요. 그러면은 지금 Q&A 시간이 이어지니까 질문이 있으신 분은 이렇게 손을 들어서 질문해 주시면 감사드리겠습니다. 네.
First of all, thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. I was wondering about, so I noticed that obviously your focus is on crafts and craftsmanship. And in my head, I felt like there was craft, and then the person who does the craft, and also your categorization of that you divided them into different nations. So what kind of role does it play for you to categorize like each item or product to its corresponding nation? Does that come from like, I don't know, like your personal background of perhaps like being multicultural? Like, I'm not sure, is there like a significance in why you categorize these items by its nation? Like it's secrets of Finland, secrets of Japan, as opposed to like, it could be like secrets of woodworking or secrets of, you know, like, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of aspects to craft and the crafts person.
That's an excellent question. Something we've been also thinking, because many crafts, like we saw, Matroska originates from northern Japan. A lot of crafts are very similar. They have same origins. Maybe it makes sense to us to categorize it by nation, because we usually do one location at the time that happens to be one nation.
Yeah. Well, let's make exhibition like Secret of Wood.
Yeah.
Thank you for new ideas. Yeah, we don't want to be like, we don't like border, like national border. But at the same time, I'm Korean. It's like, it's so important that we have nationality, but then when we travel, it's also very economical to travel one by one the country, and it's also like we get sometimes invitation from that country to make exhibition, and then it's good to title Secret of Mexico, not Secret of Clay. So it's more like the Mexicans are like, what do we have, or what's the secret of our country? So maybe many regions, but we are not like nationalistic.
Oh no, that's not.
Yes, a very good question. Make me to
Thank
think.
you.
네, 저 한국말 진짜 잘해요. 저의 한국말을 보여줄.
난 조금만 한국해요, so I try to pay attention.
안녕하세요. 저는 그 서울대학교에서 디자인 학부에 재학 중인 이규원이라고 하는데요. 먼저 재밌는 작업, 진짜 여정 같은 디자인 너무 재밌게 잘 봤고요. 두 분의 학부 생활도 정말 재밌었을 것 같아요. 그래서 학부생인 저희에게 말씀해 주시고 싶은 것이 있다면, 아니면 학부생일 때 얘기 이런 거 해주시고 싶은 게 있다면 말씀해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
이 질문 진짜 나올 것 같아서 되게 긴장했었는데, 전 학부를 서울대학교에서 다녔어요. 저기 52동 이 디자인과였을 때 되게 불량 학생이었어요. F 막 맞고 계속 앞에 막 의철 선배 기억나시죠? 아무튼 저는 제가 하고 싶은 어떤 게 있는데 그거가 어디 있는지 몰라서 되게 방황도 아니고, 뭐 그때 우리 과에서 공업 디자인과에서 막 핸드폰 만들고 그런 거였거든요. 되게 이상했어요. 막 저 막 렌더링하고 그랬어요, 학교 다닐 때. 그래서 너무 이상한데 그래도 한번 해보긴 하는데, 근데 어쩌다가 중앙도서관에서 스웨덴 잡지, 디자인 잡지를 봤는데 열었는데 거기 스웨덴, 핀란드 테이블이 나오는데 정말 테이블이 테이블인 거예요. 책상은 책상이고 의자는 의자고 뭔가 막
simple-minded.
simple minded. 그래서 나랑 비슷한 사람들이 여기 사나 보다. 그래서 93 학번인데 94년에 배낭을 메고 그 나라를 가서 봤더니 진짜 simple mind로 살더라고요. 그래서 여기 와서 한번 살아보고 싶다. 근데 살려면 학생인 게 할인도 많이 받고 학생 아파트에도 살 수 있고 그래서 학생 MA를 지원해서 가서 아직도 25년 동안 심플하게 살고 있어요. Your BA, your BA time. How was your bachelor time? 학부생.
Lots of partying. No, let me think. I studied first graphic design and later then spatial design. So it was interesting time. I was still very much looking forward what I actually would like to do. But then I met Amo, and then we kind of set up our own Day Hakkio, then after school, together with 10-20 colleagues, and that was maybe our important design school.
이거 핀란드에 가면 그래서 저는 되게 열심히 공부를 하겠지 그러고 갔는데 또 불량 학생이 되는 거예요. 막 교수님이 맨날 찾으러 다니고 너 왜 졸업 안 해? 막 이러고 그럼 막 화장실에 숨고 그랬는데 왜 그러지 나는 그러다가 이렇게 유소도 그때 찾고 이상한 애들이 막 주위에 몰리면서 되게 싼 공간을 찾았어요. 그래서 거기 건축가 친구들, 패션 디자인 친구들, 우리 이거 이렇게 하고 그래서 11명이 모여서 안텍시라고 핀란드 말로 하면 미안해 미안해라는 이름 말인데 아니면 실례합니다. 그래서 어디 가서 안텍시 그럼 사람들이 다 쳐다보는 그런 말. 그러니까 attention 아니면 excuse me 안텍시라는 그룹을 만들어서 거기서 막 맨날 매주 발표하고 내가 생각하는 거 발표하고 그럼 진짜 막 시리어스하게 질문하고 그리고 1년에 한 번씩 패션쇼 하고 우리 막 옷 하루 만들어서 막 모델도 하고 우리가 막 퍼니처 페어 만들어서 밀라노 플래그 훔쳐다가 후오리 살론에 이러고 우리 깔리오라는 막 그 변두리에서 막 파티하고 이러면서 놀다 보니까 너무 재밌는 거예요. 그냥 뭘 해야지, 나중에 뭘 해야지 이게 아니고 그냥 다 해보려는 거예요. 그리고 관객은 엄마, 아빠, 뭐 친구들, 주변 이웃들 그러다 보니까 그냥 뭔가 이렇게 안 하고 그냥 이렇게 다 해버리니까 그게 우리의 어떤 학교가 된 것 같아요. 그래서 지금 그거 한 지 한 20년 지났는데 안텍시 요즘에 다들 되게 컸어요. 우리 안텍시 친구들이 만나면 와 그때 기억 정말 막 우리 막 캐트워크 우리가 모델도 하고 돈 절약하느라 그런 거 기억나니? 막 되게 그게 나는 학대 사실은 학교였던 것 같아. 딴 질문 또 하나만 더 해도 돼요? 누구? 주원 씨 질문? 아니요?
질문 어떤? 네.
안녕하세요. 저는 석사 전공 김청 학생이라고 합니다. 저는 제품 디자인 전공 아니고 시각 디자인인데 근데 저희 학생들 문제 중에 약간 방금 선생님 강연 보였을 때 약간 아이디어는 진짜 물처럼 흘리는 것처럼 느꼈습니다. 그래서 저희들은 약간 아이디어를 없을 때 진짜 행동하기 진짜 어려운 점이 많거든요. 그래서 그런 점에서 아이디어 항상 그렇게 자연스럽게 흘리나요? 없을 때는 어떻게 해야지 그런 꿀팁을 있을까 궁금합니다.
지금 석사 과정이라고?
학생입니다.
이게 지금부터 빨리 해야 돼요. 나이가 들면은 아이디어가 더 나빠져요. 그래서 내 사실 비밀은 우리 책장에 보면 스케치북이 93년부터 아직 다 있거든요. 그러니까 모든 거 다 적어놔요. 그래서 나중에 나이 들면은 진짜 아이디어가 안 떠오르고 그럼 그때 그걸 딱 찾아서 뭐 진짜 좋은 아이디어다 이러고 내 어렸을 때 생각인데 그게 같은 나니까 그게 이렇게 반려가 돼서 이렇게 나중에 또 그런 일을 할 수 있는 경우가 많아서 그 스케치북에 아이디어 적어놓는 거 진짜 꿀팁이라는 달콤한 팁? 난 나는 그렇게 해요.
No, I totally agree. Keep all the ideas. They might not always seem so good, but once you get older, you kind of know how to make them happen. So, yeah, ideas only, the amount goes down.
아니면은 서로 바꿔가면서 내가 유소 스케치북 보면서 막 포스트 이거 너 꼭 해야 돼 막 이렇게 친구들을 스케치북 보면서 적어주고 여기 처음에 보여줬던 레드 드레스 있잖아요. 그거 한국에서 수업할 때 한번 디자인과 생활 시간에 한번 그려봤던 건데 그거 그냥 그려봤어요 학교에서. 근데 유소가 옆에다가 진짜 멋있다 해. 그래서 그 힘든 거를 한 10년 준비해서 한 거였거든요 졸업 작품으로. 그러니까 옆에서 친구 한 명이라도 저 돈 하나도 없이 그 레드레스를 시작한 거예요. 근데 친구 한 명 말이 그걸 그냥 하게 만든. 그러니까 친구랑 옛날 스케치북.
감사합니다.
질문 하나 더 해도 괜찮을까요?
저는 괜찮아요.
그 초기 작업에서는 관계 릴레이션십이나 이제 people이었는데 이제 키워드도 굉장히 중요하다고 생각하는데요. 그게 이제 시크릿으로 넘어가게 된 어떤 계기 같은 것들이 있을까요?
In the beginning, we were like relationship, people gathering, like how to meet people, but it becomes secret.
그건
되게
좀
좋은 질문이다. It's a good question.
Yeah. It's But we still do. We told that we are treated as sculptors in our new atelier, and we still work on. We do public sculptures sometimes, so we have kind of some hidden life as well that we do other things.
Like artistic, but we are not really making like dakkiainen or red dress kind of thing.
No, not
Actually,
so much.
왜냐하면 이 레드레스는 아직도 공연하거든요. 저걸 끌고 다니면서 저게 1.5톤인데 16m 큰 트럭으로 다니면서 하고 그걸 그리고 시크릿는 샵이라 우리가 가게 막 포장하고 이러다 보니까 여러 가지 이렇게 막 떠오르는 생각을 만드는 시간은 사실은 적어요. 사실은 아이슬란드 어떤 큐레이터가 너네는 왜 그런 건 아직도 안 하냐고 그렇게 딱 전곡을 찔렀는데 역시 여기서도 그리고 사실 시크릿 작업이 정말 시간이 많이 소요되고 그 로지스틱 하며 커뮤니케이션 하며 근데
네, 그러니까 그 아까 전에 유리 공예랑 그 후반부에 다른 크래프트를 이제 합쳐가지고 만든 것에서 여전히 어떤 실제 물질적인 어떤 릴레이션십에 원하시는 것 같거든요.
맞다.
네네. 그런데 그래서 다음 어떤 작업 같은 것들이 어떻게 이어질지가 궁금해서 그 지금의 어떤 시크릿 시리즈의 어떤 네, 그 구상들이
그래서 그런 거구나.
네.
I think the universal spirit is also like about the connection, like yeah. I didn't realize that. 진짜 고마워요. 그렇게 그렇게 연결이 되는구나. 예. 앞으로 그쪽으로. 혹시 무슨 공부하시는 분이세요?
저는 디자인이랑 컨템포러리 아트 쪽에.
감사합니다. 예, 저도 그런 것 같아요. 저게 그냥 자연스럽게 저렇게 넘어갔어요. 많은 마스터들을 알게 되면서, 그러니까 나는 한국 사람이지만 약간 핀란드에서 살기도 했고 러시아를 너무 좋아하니까 러시아도 내 레이어에 있고 그래서 그리고 아무튼 어떤 내셔널리티 뭐 한국 인형, 중국 인형 이런 게 있는 게 아니고 유니버설한 어떤 게 있을 것 같아서 그걸 더 연결해 보고 싶은데 더 연결해 봐야겠어요. 지금 얘기를 들으니까. 감사합니다.
좋은 작품 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
네, 감사합니다. 그러면 첫 번째 강연은 여기에서 마치도록 하겠습니다. 네, 수고하셨습니다. 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드릴게요. 네, 저희 5분 정도만 휴식을 했다가 바로 다음 강연으로 넘어가도록 하겠습니다. 화장실에 다녀오시고 싶으신 분들은 지금 다녀오시면 될 것 같습니다. 두 번째 강연 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 두 번째 강연을 해주실 연사님께서는 덴마크에서 오신 요나스 에드버드 연사님이십니다. 연사님은 천연재료에 대한 어떤 지속 가능성, 그것에서의 미적 가치, 그리고 기능성을 탐구해서 작품을 창작하고 계십니다. 네, 큰 호응으로 우리 연사님 맞아주시기 바랍니다.
Hello. Let me just quickly find what I'm doing here. Do you think I can borrow the handheld? Oh, can I hand? Oh, great. So, hello. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very, very grateful to be able to come all the way from Denmark, Copenhagen, Denmark, to a country where I have never been and I don't understand Korean. So if you think that you would like to ask me a question, you can do that. There's a translator that can help you. So I understand what you're saying. Is everybody able to hear what I'm saying? Yeah? Okay. So I come from Denmark. I live in Denmark with my wife and 2 kids. And I have a kid, a boy who's 8 years old, and I have a boy who's 3 years old. And 4 years ago, we moved outside Copenhagen. I think Copenhagen is much smaller than Seoul, so we just moved 10 kilometers out. And then we could buy a small piece of land, and I built a house, a wooden house. And I tend to have a lot of projects. And my way of working and thinking and doing things has become my professional way of life. So, but this is also a personal journey for me. So I would like for you to know more about my personal thoughts, ideas, and my approach to what I think is my pure idea, pure life, as I don't distinguish so much between my role as a designer and person. So the title of this presentation is Nature, Design, Material. And for me, it starts in the nature. And at the end, I have a material. And I would like to just show you a bit more about what will happen. But first, I will read you a quote by Henry David Thoreau from a book called Walden. And this is a book that my dad gave me. Oh, wow. Okay. And it's about a guy who moves to the forest, lives in the forest, and observes the forest. And what he finds out is that he goes deeper into this idea about how we are related as human beings to nature and how we are depending on nature, but also characterizing it, verbally, and able to transcript this into art, functional things, design, literature. So the quote is, "We need the tonic of wildness at the same time that we are earnest to explore and learn all things. We require that all things be mysterious and unexplorable." Do you mind taking the level a bit down, just a little bit? Is it possible? No, okay. We require that all things be mysterious and unexplorable, that land and sea be indefinitely wild, unsurveyed and unfathomed by us, because unfathomable. We can never have enough of nature. In my idea, this quote is about the need for something mysterious, that we as human beings are looking for an adventure or for something that we cannot control in order to be who we want to be. So in a way, we dwell on mysterious thoughts, things that doesn't make sense, ideas that come to us intuitively, and emotional values that present our personal being. Another quote, which is slightly more academic, but which comes with an explanation of how to be in this kind of natural approach, is by Claude Lévi-Strauss, and this is a quote from his book, The Savage Mind, La Pensée Sauvage, and it's about how to think. And the savage, which is his way of saying a native Indian, is a bricoleur assembling patchwork objects by adapting the means at hand, by adding, deleting, substituting, and transforming them. He attempts to reuse available materials in order to solve new problems. The opposite, the scientist, is an engineer creating objects out of nothing, out of whole cloth. His creative thinking proceeds from goals to means, makes a totalizing system in which there are elements of permanence. So on one hand, the savage is a guy or person who moves around in a surrounding and finds what he needs and adapts these to his needs and functionalizes through his journey, putting value into his own journey by accepting new things constantly, where the scientist maps the world and observes and reacts towards a linear construction, where somebody has to gain from the situation. Hopefully this was not scary too much. So, a bit about my thinking. I wrote some words down, but basically when I work, or when I started working, I quickly figured out that my intuitive approach was the best thing to rely on for building an idea. So some things about intuitiveness, you need to be bold, you need to have an opinion, but also you need to understand that there's a freedom here to fail. Every time you do something that you are feeling good about, it can also be a failure. So this idea about failure, it can sound very negative, but to me it's a part of life, that a constant innovation and a constant development in humans, in society, politically, linguistically, nationality, is a failure, and every time we have a problem, it's a possibility for us to learn, to develop, and grow more enhanced, and maybe even more accessible. So you can say that there is a kind of triangle where it is motivation, understanding, and delivery, and then the end is failure, and then you start again constantly, finding motivation, understanding, and then delivery. Delivery could be the product, motivation could be some money, it could also be something else, and understanding could be your own approach to life. So here it is me standing in the forest, and this is 2010 when I did my bachelor thesis, and what I decided was that I wanted to make a project about failure. And again, failure is not constructed, it's something that happens unexpectedly. But I wanted to construct it. So my personal view was to, how can I learn myself the trick to fail? From the failure I can learn to be a new person, or think new. So I set the scene for 3 weeks living in the forest, a bit like a hermit in the forest, like the quote in the beginning with the guy from Walden, but this is in a more Danish setting, so not so far from the kiosk, but you know, I could buy some food if I wanted, and I did that also. But the approach was to, how can I live here? How can I build what I feel like building? How can I sleep, sit, travel? And so I designed these 3 elements that would give me the possibility to move through the journey that I wanted. And the first thing I needed was the sleeping area. That was the hammock, hanging hammock. And secondly, I had to sit when I had to think. And in the stool, there's also a storage unit for my precious stuff. And lastly, I wanted to have a journey, an experience of a journey, an experience of something new. And all these elements have been built from scrap materials. So old wood, old insulation, a bicycle, rubber, a cover for some materials that was flying around. They were done without tools. And this approach gave me a kind of starting point to become interested in what I ended up doing. I had an accident in school where I felt I was in shock. I felt I almost died. It was a traffic accident, and that made me think about life and what is valuable to me. And I went back into my childhood to figure out, okay, there is something here that there is some smells, there's some sound, there's some color that makes sense to me. And what would make sense was this smell of the forest. So I had a project, which was my final thesis project, where I wanted to work with mushrooms. And it was just intuitively the only thing I wanted. And what is great is that there is so many interesting things about mushrooms. Is it possible to get the other mic? Because I need to somehow go there and point. Or can I attach this one? Great. Hello? So, I don't have a stick, but I will try to point. So, when I started this approach, it was this idea about what is mushrooms. And the first thing that came to my mind was that the fact that there is so many levels of microorganisms in our lives that matters to us. One thing is, of course, here in Korea, where you make a lot of food from fermentation, which is one thing. There's alcohol fermentation. And then there's all these other situations where you don't produce food, but you produce something else. This is Alexander Fleming developing penicillin from an accident, a failure from an open petri dish, where there was a common mold growing called Aspergillus niger. It's a black mold that you have in wet areas. This one developed the penicillin. This was an accident. Another thing which I personally find very interesting is the slime mold experiment done in the 80s in Japan, where they had to develop the subway in order to figure out the best route between the different stations. They put food in all these positions, and the slime mold grew the most efficient route. So the efficient route between the stations, but also the fastest route. And that means that they had to reevaluate how to make something through, let's say, only one parameter, kilometer time. This is a mushroom suit by an American designer that helps the body disintegrate. And she figured out that the main pollution is to our world is our bodies. That is the last part of the food chain, has consumed all the toxic materials that we can. Nobody will eat us. There will be no extra life. So in this case, she wanted to create something which was a better decomposition of the body. I don't think that it worked, but maybe. So this is a cordyceps mushroom living on caterpillar in Tibet. And Tibet, they eat this. It gives a longer life. Nicotine, artificially made by mushrooms. Mexican god here. Lingxi tea, like reishi tea. Colibacteria, the biggest amount, the largest, what do you call it? The most common bacteria we have in our stomach, which is both good and bad. And mushroom mycelium, growing in the ground, mushroom mycelium growing in a bag, producing food. All these things opened up this completely new chapter of my approach to what I could do. So I ended up designing a functional piece, but most of my development for this project came from this idea about a symbiotic relationship with nature, where we collaborate with nature in a different way. You can say it's a bit like agriculture. We produce some food, and in this case I wanted to turn around the design production, where you normally cut down a tree, wait 5 years, and then turn it, or you buy it from a shop. In this case I use some leftover hemp fiber, which is incubated, colonized by a mushroom, and then produces fruit after 4 weeks. And then after consuming the food, the lampshade here is dried out and becomes a functional piece. So reversing the idea of production. And again, this didn't give a lot of food, but it was about 500 grams of, so 1 portion, oyster mushroom. The material itself is lightweight when it's dried, flexible, stiff, something in between cardboard and paper. This project became an approach that I have been working on for the last 10 years. Eventually I started investigating engineering, like engineering materials, how to perform architecturally, producing extruded elements, laminating, compressing, shaping, trying to innovate the idea of what is this material. And in the beginning there was nobody working on this, so I did this exhibition together with 3 other guys that were also working with this, which has now been, all of them has started their own company, produces a lot of different mushroom-based materials. One was Mauricio Montalgio, who started Mogu from Italy. Another one was a guy from LA, who started this leather company. And it was nice to meet suddenly someone who were also thinking about designing a material. This chair was exhibited in Utrecht at the Botanical Garden, and later on in Chicago, where it's now a part of the permanent collection. This is another piece I did for the same series of exhibitions, which is the first sound-absorbing element from mushrooms, which was done as a, let's say, open module system, so it's possible to connect the landscape, and it is a double-walled, so that means that it can hang freely. And the idea is to create, of course, sound absorption, which is a huge problem in modern-day buildings made from steel, glass, concrete. The human mind works best when there's not too much interference of sound reflection. And the same goes with light, of course. But sound is the most difficult thing to be, if it's not good, if it's too much, then it's the most difficult thing, most damaging to work. This was later on where I was commissioned to do a piece for exhibition at the Pompidou in Paris, where I showed a chair and the lamp, and this here I wanted to show how the mushroom lives in a kind of autonomous world of like a prison, you can say, it grows in, where it actually adapts to the climate, a bit like human beings, accepts the environment, but quickly there is a border, so it moves out of that border. And it ended up being, it's not possible to see here, but it ended up being that the mushroom grew out of the box here and all over. Here you can see how it kind of completely absorbs all the elements and grows into all the corners, and this I didn't expect, so this was also a failure. I was trying to make a functional piece it was possible to take it off, but it was just this idea that, hang on, what is going on here? It's like, okay, this actually looks nice. I think I would like to use that for something. And again, here, the clips and everything grew together, and the mushroom covered everything in a white surface. But I wanted to use that again for another piece. Maybe I'll just quickly. So, jumping to another project, which I have brought some samples here, and I think I bring them because I have the feeling every time I talk about these projects, people have a hard time understanding the quality of the material. So later on, you're all allowed to touch these, of course. This project here is a different material. This is a material that you also have here in Korea, and most of Asia eats this. This is seaweed, and in Denmark we have a very, very long shoreline. The country is small, but the sea is the shore. What do you call it? Yes, the shore, strand. Yeah, it's very long, and that means that you have enormous amounts of seaweed growing there. This is the most common one. It's a brown algae, and in Denmark we don't eat it, but we use the alginate, which is the binder in the seaweed, to produce stabilizers for yogurt, beer, paint, everything. It's a low melting, low viscosity jelly. It's also called vegetable gelatin. And this is the most common Danish ones, which we have. We have about 55 different ones. And for this project, we wanted to do a research into how can you make a material that can be representing of the landscape. In a way, we all are a part of a landscape, even though it's artificial most of the time. But how can we find a natural landscape that we can understand as a geographical point of view? And from this point of view, we thought the shore was just the most interesting part of Denmark. There is also a huge history of Denmark being a country with a lot of transport ships, Vikings, all these traveling around, not being able to stay the same place, fighting over the land, a lot of confrontation. But the whole world has sea, so there's seaweed everywhere, so everybody can relate to this idea. So this is the coast of Denmark, and here you have the seaweed growing, and in the winter everything washes to the shore, and this is becoming a part of nature. It will be fermenting naturally, and then becoming fertilizer. It will also wash to the shore again, wash to the sea again, and become a part of the sea. But these algae, they just come in the winter. And in the winter, I visit my parents. This is my dad. And this is one of the typical things that we find. It's Palmaria digitata. It's maybe wakame, like I don't know the Korean name, sorry, but it's something you can also eat and make a sauce from, I think. It's a brown algae. It looks green, but it's actually brown algae. There is brown algae, green algae, and red algae. And I don't know if there's maybe even more, but that's what I know. And that's kind of the group. And in Denmark, we mostly have green algae. So the algae contains this stiff material that can actually be extracted. And this glue, we can call it, is what makes the algae stay, in the same position in the water, not breaking. It is like noodles, or spaghetti, or what do you call it, when you heat it. So this is the molecule, very, very long acidic molecule, that when it gets warm, this means dissolving, it gets flexible. And when it cools down, it starts forming spirals. And after cooling down, it starts clumping together. So in that way, it becomes a Yeah, I have to be there. This is 100%. Thanks. This is 100% seaweed. There's nothing added. It's only seaweed being the glue. And what we do is we add a salt to combine it into a bigger construction. And that way we can add fiber to create a cardboard that can be laminated. And that's why I brought these. So this is all different lamination. And some have different sounds. So this is maybe the hardest one. This is a different seaweed that we used for this. For this chair, we used, this is the seaweed Fucus vesiculosus, and it's the Danish seaweed that we have a lot in Copenhagen where I live. So actually I just went to the sea outside my studio to collect the seaweed, grinded it to a powder, made a glue, mixed with paper, roll out thin sheets, dry it out, press it. And it's the same with wood, you press that in shape too. So it was a very common production. But what was interesting was how to tell people that this is 100%, there's nothing artificially in there. That was the difficult thing. It's always a bit difficult to convince people's opinion when they're already set on what is going on. So one of the advantages was this idea of failure. How can you achieve, if you create something you think is innovative, you want to convince people this is innovative, but still they don't get it. So how can you do that? That was my challenge again. So next thing we did was some lamps, a workshop where we tried out how can you make your own lamp from seaweed, the whole process, teaching people the whole process. How can we start from this living thing, end up with this design piece? And then I started getting a lot of orders for restaurants and cafes and bakeries, and this was one of the first big projects in London. This is Selfridges in London, which is a huge shopping mall. On top there was a restaurant by a guy from Blue Hill Farm in New York, and they wanted to do a restaurant from waste. So they approached me with this idea that all the things in the restaurant should be made from waste. They had these chairs made from waste. My lamps was categorized as waste, but this is because I'm using recycled paper. And we made also some mushroom lamps, and there was served some food that was also made from different kinds of elements of waste, but not waste from the trash, but in the industrial production of food. All the heads from the fish were cooked into a soup, so there has been this idea, maybe an industrial linear idea, as the scientist that I expressed in the beginning, that you have to just take what you need and throw out the rest. But there is so many things that is left over that are still usable. So this is the approach that I also carry, and still do in my project. This was one of the latest lamps that we did for a Danish restaurant called Noma Restaurant, which is one of the world's best restaurants, but also a some really nice food. And they wanted to build a new restaurant and needed new lights. So they approached me, and my initial idea was to say, okay, we need to represent different areas of Denmark. So I made 3 different colors to express the landscape. And this is because every seaweed has a different color, but it's also depending on the season. So for example, there's dark brown, light brown, green, yellowish, and then they all change as the trees change color, they change in the season also. So I tried to adapt that. They ended up choosing the dark one, and that's fine with me. But here you can see how this dark brown color is. This is the color, and this is the lamp. This is there's a lot of light coming in here, so it's difficult to see the color. But as you see this close-up, you see all the different spots of bigger pieces of seaweed left over in the material. The color itself is a combination of brown and green colors. The green colors, they don't last very long in light, UV light. So at the end, this light becomes much more brown. Another piece I did for the same company, but for another restaurant, was trying to change this color into something more adaptable to, let's say, commercially interesting. And then I actually combined it with another material that we have a lot of in Denmark, which is limestone, or krit, like chalk, which is really a nice material, and I really wanted to work with it. And the thing is that I already started a project with this, and this is a burger restaurant. The architects asked me, can you do this shape, or not this shape, but another shape? And I said, no, I want to do this shape. And they said, okay, let's do that. So for this project, that was a nice approach for them. So again, back to the limestone. This was actually already in 2015, where I felt I need to go into this this place because it was so fascinating. It's a really, really fascinating place in Denmark. And I would like to show you a small video of this. And so it looks like this. So this is the place where I went to understand how do you find this material. We have this huge quarry, and in that quarry, which is a big hole of 8 times 8 kilometers, half a kilometer deep, there is just a lot of chalk. And this is used, first they go with the machine to flatten it completely and to break all these pieces into powder. And I was like, okay, why do you break it? We need to make fertilizer. So they make fertilizer, or they make cement. So they mostly make cement and fertilizer. Yeah. And there was a lot of noise there, and it was also quite dangerous. They have so much. They excavate day and night, but they only have 25 years left, they said. So this is the big truck. And inside this chalk is another material that I didn't use yet, but this is called flint. And flint is a very precious stone. It used to be very precious, but it is not used anymore. So they take out the chalk, clean it, go through all these mechanized, autonomous working machines, and it's very rough, a lot of sweat. Very beautiful place. A lot of what I found mostly interesting about this place was the light, because this material is actually crystals, so it's actually small amorph crystals. It's broken down. This is the stone again. This is not being used. I think they use it for some kind of road filling, maybe. And the end, it ends up here. This is the final spot. This is where the trucks come, and there's a grab putting it back into the truck, and then they drive directly to the packing. That's the truck. They're ready. It's a very simple production. It's just a really beautiful situation. Most of this is used for cement production, that you use for concrete production. But what I found very interesting was the color. So there is about 85% reflection here, but because it's an amorph crystal, it doesn't send it directly. It disperses out in a lot of radiation. That means that the light is diffused. That means that instead of, let's say, it's a glass that directs light directly, it actually diffuses light and gives it a more pleasant look. So I wanted to approach that, and and wanted to investigate how is this material used. It's called coral limestone. It is the corals of the sea that covered Denmark 150 million years ago, where there was the tropical sea. Big sharks, crocodiles, dinosaurs, and all these corals are totally smashed into pieces. Sometimes you can find this, you can make marble churches like this one, which is called the marble church. And other times you use it for this, a baroque mirror, where you mix it with a glue, in this case bone glue, and you make an ornament that is molded and gold leafed, and in that way becoming a plastic. So some of the first plastic types is coming from limestone powder and bone glue. So that was my approach into understanding the material. So I, again, experimented, and this idea about experimenting, from that comes a lot of failures. A lot of ideas that looks different than what you expect. A lot of approaches are beautiful, but not able to stay forever. It looks very beautiful, but after a couple of wiping, it's completely gone. But this is the sanding of the material, and that's what this is the idea that I kept. So it was in 2015, I was asked to do kind of like a talent exhibition in Paris. And I went there, and I went with my lamps and my tables, and I thought, now I want to be manufacturer, produce. And it went really well, won a prize, and then everything went really fine. And then after 3 or 4 years of manufacturing these things, I got really bored. It was not fun at all, but I think it was about, should I produce, like should I just be a producer, or should I actually develop things? And I think my testing here was, how can you find your passion again? I love these products. I have a web shop where you can still buy all these, and it's really great. So I went back into developing ideas, and here I was producing them for Noma again. There's a gray lamp here for the architects that came to me asking for advice in how can we do a light that is made from natural materials, how can we do this and this. And since Noma is a restaurant, maybe you know it, is a restaurant that emphasizes the Nordic food from 10 years ago to now, combining it with Asian food, Mexican food. They wanted this kind of origin expression. So again, the limestone for me is my origin, where I grew up, the countryside, the sea where I grew up, there was a limestone everywhere. So this is kind of my approach to going back into nature, the smell of nature, the feeling of nature, the surface, the tactility of nature. And all these emotional values that combines into going deeper into what is a material. And here, again, a surface like this is not one color, it's not one pattern, it's always a completely chaos, a completely failure. That means that there is no correction here, but it's the combination of random things coming together into an idea that creates a beautiness. So in a way, through the, let's say, the crack in our mind, you can see the beauty. And this is something that, you know, invites me into an idea. So if I have an idea, it has to be a bit ugly also. This is a burger restaurant, again. I tend to do a lot of burger restaurants. Maybe it's because in Denmark we have a lot of burger restaurants. A light made as a cone for some friends I have that are architects, and yeah, it was a nice project. It was again a lot of failures, a lot of problems. For example, the surface here was very difficult to do. This is when the material shrinks, it makes a lot of points, and it was very difficult to control exactly this without breaking the lamp. Finally, I would like to show you a bit about more a sculptural approach that I have been doing for the last 5 years, which is like a limited edition, like one-off pieces that I work with, where again the main topic is how not to control the material. So I was approached by an art event, like a curator for an art event, and had to do, let's say, an installation, and I decided to do 4 pieces with the approach of value in design. So what makes design valuable? And in many ways, when you evaluate or revalue something, it is always because you believe something is worth it. So there was this thing for me, that approach was, what is the belief? What is the faith? What is the superstition? What emphasizes my meaning? And this idea of having a relic which is a leftover of something religious, holy, was for me the approach to this idea. So the idea that design is the relics of our time, and again in the shape of these things, that when we construct our life with what we have at home, with what we have with us, the clothes, the story of our lives, these items, these dead items, they tell the story of who we are. So I did a chair. This is a chair I did, and the surface here again is made through a combination of 3 different kinds of powder. And the approach was that what is a powder is the less valuable thing that you almost throw out. It is the last state of being of a material. So a powder, stone powder, a wooden powder, and a metal powder. They are all almost gone from our mind, from our thoughts, but in combination they look like this. And what happens, which I was not expecting at all, is that there's this pattern coming. This pattern comes from the oxidation of metals that are incorporated into the material. The oxidation is like ceramic. When you burn, you oxidate materials. So all these spots are the metal points, and they oxidate through a reduxation. So it's 2 things, reduxation and oxidation. And the reduxation is the black, and later on it becomes brownish. So the reduxation is actually a reaction chemically with the tannins in the wood. And I didn't know this when I started. It was a complete failure, but it looked interesting. So I made this furniture, and I made some lights, and they are all sold because it's just one-off. But this I like the most. This was sold first. This I liked the second most, and this was sold at the end. And I think, let's say, the value of these, what I earned, was not enough from how much I worked on it. But the idea of working like this was new to me. So again, finding the right gallery, finding the right logistic situation was, of course, very important. But again, a project which comes from this idea of what is value in design, how can an object have a value even though it's comprised of powder, which doesn't really mean anything. And that was kind of like my outro for the situation. I think I went a bit above time. No, maybe it's okay. So if you have any questions, please let me know, because there's a lot of things, and afterwards you're welcome to touch all these. Thank you.
네, 질문 있으신 분, 네, 손을 들어주실까요?
Thank you so much for showing your experiments and everything. How did you make the lampshade? Like, did you have a mold, or was it like folded, or?
This one?
Yeah. With the stone.
This one, right?
No. Yeah. With the stone, limestone, the hamburger.
Oh, the hamburger.
Yeah.
This one.
Because it's a stone and
Exactly.
yeah.
So it's made from animal glue, and animal glue is what you use for this material here. This is an ornament from a Baroque mirror from the 1600 from France, and they use animal glue.
Yes.
Yeah, animal glue, gypsum, and limestone. And when you mix this in the right ratio, you can make it work exactly like marble or concrete, or you can add a lot of things. So it's kind of the first plastic that was invented. The first, that's why it's called plaster in English. But this idea of plastic life comes from the plaster. So this is a redevelopment of that material. That means that I add these small dots here. This is actually just larger pieces of limestone, which gives this pattern. And for this one, I didn't sand it, so therefore it is a lot of unevenness. And there's a shrinkage, so the shrinkage exposes the material inside. But it's difficult because it's very fragile, this edge.
But how do you make that then cylinder shape?
Yeah, it's compressed.
Okay.
You can probably also sand it down, but then you see on the spots.
Yeah.
No, it's compressed and
Yes.
through. And what is difficult here is the compression, taking it out again.
Yes.
Yeah, there has to be no slip. Otherwise it's too difficult. And I think
So how do you take it out? So,
silicone support.
okay.
Secret.
I thought of like olive oil or because
oil?
you are using all eatable.
Yeah, no, it's a silicone. Silicone is also 100% bio-based. I would say no, it's mineral-based. Mineral-based rubber.
Really? Silicone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Okay.
I wonder, like, the chair that you showed before.
The seaweed?
Yeah, the seaweed one. I wonder how practical it is in the durability. Like, is it sturdy or like the?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, yeah, and it's also a question I get every day when I show this. So I completely understand your question. I think what I also get is I get 3 mails every week saying, "Can you please tell us how you make the chair?" And so the interest is in why is this possible? And again, your mind plays you a trick. We all are fooled by materials. We think they can do more. We expect them to do more. We also expect some materials to do less. One can wonder, when you have too many materials, what happens then? You start using them for different purposes. What is really interesting is when you limit yourself to materials. So just using one material to understand what can it do. And then the question arises, do I need this? How long can it last? Should it last forever? What does it mean if it can stay outside? All these questions that we didn't ask ourselves. So again, a failure or a provocation or some kind of understanding. What do you need? And in this case, it cannot go to the rain. It will break in the rain. But if it stays inside, it can last for. I have one for 10 years, so it can last for 10 years. I also have you can also sit in this one. It's possible, of course. But again, through the development of these materials, there's always a different understanding. So what I figured out was that, for example, these 4 seaweeds have different purposes. Like they can be used for different things. This is one seaweed that is extremely hard, and one here is more soft. So even more lightweight.
Thank you so much.
버섯으로 만든 메탈리얼 중에 처음에 푸드로 약간 폼을 만들어 놓고 그 버섯이 자라면서 그 폼대로 물체가 생성이 되는 거잖아요. 근데 버섯이 의도한 대로 자라지 않을 수도 있고 약간 버섯은 축축한 곳에서 자랄 텐데 어떻게 그게 약간 완벽하게 픽스되고 원하는 모양대로 될 수 있는지 궁금해요.
Do you want this one?
Behave the way that you expect it to.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah?
Yeah, because mushrooms usually they grow in very damp places.
Yeah.
How can so usually mushrooms grow in very damp places.
Mhm.
So how did you get it to just stay in a very fixed position? How did
Okay.
you get the form to
Yeah.
stay the way it is?
Good question. So, here we have, do you understand me? Yeah, okay. Here we have here a plastic edge here. Inside is a plastic vacuum molded plastic. So that means that this material is resting. It's only resting. There's no compression here. And the mold here is, the plastic is done on a wooden mold, very traditional vacuum molding on a wooden mold. And I have 6 of these. I can produce more. It's kind of a tray, you can say. What is difficult about this mold, which I figured out very quickly, is that the material falls off right away. So I have done new developments, means that I can make flat sheets and then curve it afterwards. And what is great about this material is that, of course, it's nice when you have a static mold. This is called a static mold, means that you just have one mold you need to produce. If you want to do 100,000 lamps, you need to do 100,000 molds. But if you have a flat piece, you can just make a flat sheet and you can shape that afterwards. So it's a bit more linear thinking. And then again, you enter some problems. How can you shape this with a flat material? It is not possible. So these lamps are only done like this. This material here is done with a flat piece, and it's a folded piece. You can maybe see it. And the material is folded all the way around through this structure. It is rested through the growing period, and after 2 weeks it is stable. Then 2 more weeks and dried out. And then it becomes this hard material. So through the mushroom mycelium, there is a connection. There is a connection here. This is very visible here, where the fiber of the mushroom grows on top of each other in a direction, in a star shape, and when it starts overlapping, it hardens. So that means that it's a highway of highways of highways of highways, and at the end it becomes a surface. And that surface is what makes this material strong. It's called a sandwich construction, where you have an outside layer of strength. That's what you do with ceramic also, you put a glaze on, so it's strong. So in this case, the fiber is grown together by the mycelium, and it enhances the strength of the composite, and the composite gets a white layer on the top. And with regards to how difficult it is very difficult. So it is always a problem. You cannot tell the mushroom what to do. Never. It will always grow in the wrong area. And I find it very funny. Every time I grow, I'm like, okay, something shit happened. Okay, let's try again. Yeah.
네, 그러면은 사실 네, 이 분야가 뭐 지속 가능성이라는 디자인 때문이기도 하고 이런 자연 소재를 쓰는 분야가 요즘 디자인에서 굉장히 핫한 이슈기도 한데요. 그 접근성이 사실 굉장히 어렵고 실제로 해보면 실패도 굉장히 많은데 그래서 이제 좀 머무될 수 있는 어떤 분야이기도 한데 오늘 이 연사님을 통해서 여러분들이 그런 가능성을 더 많이 보셨을 거라 생각합니다. 네, 그러면 좋은 강연 해주신 연사님께 박수 부탁드립니다. 네, 그러면 저희 5분 정도 또 휴식했다가 다시 마지막 강연 보도록 하겠습니다. 그럼 저희 IDCC 이번 마지막 강연을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 네, 마지막으로 강연을 해주실 연사님은 허미숙 연사님이십니다. 허미숙 연사님께서는 범랑공이시자 금속 세공인으로 이스트 캐롤라이나의 대학교의 예술디자인학부의 교수님이시기도 하십니다. 허미숙 교수님의 작업은 자연의 영감을 받은 사실적인 이미지를 중심에 두고 있고요. 그다음에 예일대학교 갤러리, 그다음에 필라델피아 미술관을 포함한 세계 유수 박물관에 그 작품들이 소장되어 있습니다. 네, 허미숙 연사님 큰 박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
네, 감사합니다. 듣는데 괜찮습니까? 네, can you hear me well? Let's see. I came from the place 13 hours behind, so you can see me. Maybe 제가 좀 졸더라도 이해하세요. I might be dozing off, but we'll see how things are gonna go. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Misu Kerr, and I'm teaching metal design and first year shared experience at the School of Art and Design at East Carolina University. First, I want to thank you, IDCC Design Department and Seoul University for inviting me presenting here. And also, I wanted to thank you for everyone here and attending this symposium in person and virtually. So in this presentation, I'll introduce how contemporary artists, metalsmiths, and jewelers utilize their knowledge at traditional crafts in the new context of working with the digital tools, while also obtain new handmade knowledge by interpolating traditional practices into digital ones. I also include some artists in different mediums who using CAD/CAM in their studio practices and expand to the online business. The cinema camera doesn't make movies. It allows a movie to be made. It's the creative people who made it real to the people. I want to start with this quote by Dr. Ivan Sutherland, because I wanted to point out the CAD/CAM is not only about learning and using technology, but also it's all about creativity, motivation, and imagination. So this image is an article from the Computer History Museum. Dr. Ivan Sutherland introduced the sketchpad as a part of his PhD thesis at MIT in the early 1960s. With the advent of computers, this world changed again. Here are some pieces of jewelry from 1930s to 1970s. This is still life by Alexander Calder. He began making jewelry in the early 1930s for his wife and close friend using brass and silver, which is hammered in large flat swords and layered in three-dimensional necklaces. I meant to write to you a birthday letter 2 days ago, but I made the necklace instead. He jotted his mother around her 64th birthday, explained that the making jewelry was the means of affection and communication. While Calder is most associated with the significant public works for his medium-sized mobiles, the jewelry shimmers with a radiance intimacy, revealing the mark of Calder's hammer, anvil, and the hand. This is another very famous artist, Salvador Dali. Title is Time's Eye. He was a bold artist whose style permitted several different artistic disciplines. Of course, we all know about his surrealistic paintings, and dominates his career's second half. Here we examine his journey into the art foams. Here is an overview of the process of making three-dimensional solid object from a digital STL file. After the model is created in 3D modeling software, the printer uses additive processes by layering down successive layers of materials. Each layer is thinly sliced approximately 1.2 millimeter horizontally across the section of the eventual object. This video is from Dr. John Hart at MIT. He's an industrial expert who addresses application and implication of the full spectrum of CAD/CAM technology.
The products we design have been constrained by the capabilities of processes, such as machining, molding, and casting. And the economics of manufacturing have been limited by the need to invest in fixed tooling and equipment. Additive manufacturing fundamentally changes that by letting us create objects on demand using digital data. That lets us reimagine how we design products and how we define their performance, can make factories more efficient, and reduces our time to market. As a result, we consider additive manufacturing to be a cornerstone of the next industrial revolution.
With additive, it's really about expanding that design space. It promises to change the traditional paradigms of how we approach creating something.
Now, we've been using many of today's additive manufacturing processes for over 20 years, mainly for advanced prototyping, but only recently are we turning the corner toward mass production. This has implications for nearly every industry, from lightweight, strong metal parts for aerospace and automotive applications, to customized medical devices and consumer goods.
If you look at orthopedic implants like this one, they are relying on bone to actually grow into the surface of the device. And with additive manufacturing, you can fine-tune the bladder structures so that it's more conducive to bone growth.
We can really customize stuff for end users, which allows for a lot of freedom when designing those objects.
If you can imagine it, you can print it. It really opens up the door to new possibilities that we haven't been able to leverage before.
So handcrafting, vice versa, CAD drafting, there's several advantages over hand drafting. So flexibility. Okay? The flexible design and the convenience of work environment using the CAM. However, some experts feel that hand drafting is crucial to understanding and retaining basic drafting concept, which let the users use CAD software more effectively. Second of all, the time factor. The most significant advantage of the CAD drafting over the hand drafting is a reduction in design time, which lends to reduce the design cost. CAD software ensures total accuracy of measurement with a few simple commands, thus saving time. In addition, CAD enables storing early design template in the computer, which further reduces how much time is needed. And then ease of manipulation also too. CAD software offers tremendous flexibility and designer to make necessary changes or modification. Revision can be made quickly without withdrawing plans. And also ability of to create 3D CAD models. Creating 3D models is challenging and tiresome job. 3D CAD package have some more powerful features for creating 3D models quickly. The 3D printed jewelry is very lightweight and cost labor effective. So they are selling at a meager retail prices. Most of all, the designs can be easily reproduced and manipulated to adjust design, scale, and colors. However, 3D design printed jewelry is easily recognizable because its distinctive aspect, whoever artists use the process in similar manners. This is a photo I took at the Root exhibition at the Museum of Art and Design, New York in 2015. The exhibition showcased the contemporary jewelry trend. At the time, 3D printed jewelry was relatively new. And over the years, 3D printing technology and printing materials have drastically developed. Here we see various printing materials from the Foam Lab. Foam Lab is a 3D printing technology developer and manufacturer. The material vary depending on purposes, durability, flexibility, and uses, etc. Foam's 3D printer series give the most accurate and detailed designs for jewelry makers. Moreover, the printer allows for significant time savings when adjusting and manipulating designs. The castable wax burns out the same way as lost cast wax. Here's a photo to show how Foamji prints the castable model with the supporting material. It generates layer by layer using castable resin wax. 3D printed castable wax models are cast in metal through the traditional burnout and casting process, then involves human hands. I am introducing 11 artists who utilize CAD/CAM in their studio practice and teaching. They are John Wood, Doug Butch, Emily Cobb, Maria Ife, and Amy Roper-Lyons, Frankie Flood, Jenny Wu, Joshua Hacker, Arthur Hesh, Carl Len, and Hosanna Rubio. So John Wood lives in Boston, Massachusetts. He's a professor emeritus with the Fine Art 3D department at Massachusetts College of Art and Design. Joe has taught jewelry, metalsmithing, and digital technique CAD since 1985, including workshop at Haystack, Penn School of Crafts, and Royal College of Art. This is the brooch. The image is possibly laser engraved on the vitreous enameled copper. Here is an example of how he designed this flog ring with accuracy and detailed 3D software, such as ZBrush and Rhino. The designer can examine the design in 4 different viewports with highly rendered options before printing and casting. So here is the 3D printed model and cast it and polish it. Doug Butch is an artist and educator in the field of jewelry, whose work utilizes digital processes to explore and display biological systems and the effect of disease on the body. Butch is assistant professor and head of metals design CAD/CAM technology program at Tyler School of Art and Architect. And computer-aided technologies allowed Butch to view and stimulate data, patterns, and shell forms, which are transformed into meaningful, personal, and wearable art. Butch's iList series is inspired by biological systems and created from medical data and CAD, promoting the possibilities of expression across different disciplines. The data is transmitted from the continuous glucose monitoring system and wirelessly steamed in 3D modeling software. So this is he show how he did.
The overarching theme I've been working on for the last
15 years is really looking at how information, medical information, can be transformed into everyday objects. The piece that's going into the Cooper Hewitt is a part of the islet series. Islet is Isla Langerhans, which is makes up 10 to 15% of the pancreas of the diet of any human being, and there are these small little collections of cells that cluster together and produce the hormones that control metabolization of sugars. In about 2008, I started wearing a continuous glucose monitoring system, which would check my blood sugar every 3 minutes and send the information to my insulin pump. So I was able to, in somewhat of a real-time sequence, see what my blood glucose is. But just like having any new piece of equipment or any new toy, you began to figure out what you can do with it and its potential. I began finding that I would get collections of data that I would bring to my endocrinologist every 3 months, in time to get some blood work done for a hemoglobin A1C, which is a 3-month survey of the glucose on your blood cells. And I would come with a collection of data and logbooks and provide them with it, and realize this information was good as a snapshot. It would be a tremendous amount of work to collect that data, but in the end, it was for naught. I would go away, start the process again, and the information really became dead data. Nothing to do with it. But I found that through these spreadsheets, I was able to collect and export them out of the insulin pump. And by taking that continuous glucose monitoring system through the insulin pump, creating spreadsheets that I can then bring into Rhino and help manipulate the point count of objects. So I began collecting a series of point data in my first series. And the series began to look at a 3-month study, from being highly stressed while planning a conference to the month of the conference, and then the month following the conference. And it was amazing to see how the point count went from being very sparse and missing a lot of data points to being very rich and full by the end of the process. So it really began to prove to me that I could then begin to control objects using the information that was coming out of medical devices. I'm like, here, look, this is an antique bag. Right?
I've never seen that.
We've gone to a ubiquitous state of 3D printing. When I walk into a party at someone's house and I hear a conversation across the room of something being 3D printed, that I no longer have to tell people about it. I no longer have to convince people of it. It's out there and it's being used. I came to White, Strong, and Flexible understanding nylon. We've worn nylon for years in clothing, stockings, and those materials have been dyed, they've been processed, and they're compatible with the body. So to me, nylon wasn't ideal. You go through your life making, and it's a humble process. You're quiet, you make these objects, and you put them out in the world, hoping that they're noticed. And then, one day these opportunities are far and few in between. And to me, being a part of the Smithsonian Collection, the Cooper Hewitt, these are two institutions that are exalted.
She lived in historical Costard village outside of Providence, Rhode Island. Emily combines metalworking and digital fabrication techniques to create a jewelry that illustrated emotions, expressions, and experience relationship through the abstraction and reconstruction of the animal form. In Emily's art statement, she states, "This series of illustrative jewelry is generated from personal fables that often contain animals as a central part of the imagery. When the body becomes a part of a composition, it animates the body, and I want this interaction to spark creative discussion and dialogue. Through the juxtaposition, metamorphosis, and abstraction of the representational form, this works intended to captivate the imagination. Maria F.A. is a Philadelphia-based jewelry designer and maker. For those necklaces, Maria focused on technology, the jewelry design in a CAD program, and made using 3D printer. These pieces are hand-dyed in the artist studio. She states, with my loops series of jewelry, I'm exploring geometry and new materials. 3D printed nylon is a wonderful material for jewelry. It's flexible, durable, and lightweight. It allows a big, bold design that won't weigh you down. Maria is driven by the desire to experiment with materials and processes. She's intrigued by the idea of the wearable stories and communication through the jewelry. Her work also portrays a material obsession using traditional jewelry method and newer technologies, including 3D printing and laser cutting. She states, the form I create are inspired by structures found in both in nature and built world. I use the digital technologies to generate complex structure and design. Combined with the finish and refinement of the traditional craft, I create adornment that complement their body and intrigue the viewer. Amy Roger Lyons is a studio goldsmith and enamelist. Lyons creates bold compositions of silver and glass. Each unique piece is made by hand in her studio. She combines processes like a crotone, precaju, and bastille with a broad palette of goldsmithing techniques, including forming, carving, and fabricating. Precaju is a vitreous enameling technique where the enamel is applied in a shell. This is similar to crotone, but with no backing in the final product. So light can shine through the transparent or translucent enamel. It is, in fact, a miniature of a version of stained glass and considered very challenging technically. She states, I start with the framework built out of sterling silver. I begin to apply the first course of enamel. Enamel is a powdered glass in different color. It's mixed with the water and a small amount of organic glue to hold in a place on the sterling silver and then fire in the furnace. She used a Rhino 3D program to create shells ready for the precaju enamel technique. The computer-generated files are printed in wax or resin and cast in the metal. Each metal shell is filled with a vitreous enamel and fired in a kiln layer by layer. Then the surface is stoned and polished, create a stained glass effect. And Frankie Flood is associate professor and area head of metalsmithing and jewelry design area at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. Frankie Flood has been exhibiting his mechanical pizza cutter and 3D printed hands. The potential that craft has to serve the local and global communities through design and fabrication has been the focus of Flood recent research as it continued combining traditional craft practice with digital technology. Frank states, I create hands for local and international children. The e-neighbor community is a global group of volunteers who have joined forces and have tasked themselves to make a free prosthetic hands available for the kids. This is a group of thinkers, engineers, 3D printing enthusiasts, occupational therapists, universal professors, designers, parents, families, artists, students, teachers, and people who want to make a difference. They innovate, redesign, and provide prosthetic hands and fingers for the children all over the world with the use of 3D printing.
Can you grab my hand? Can you grab my hand with it or not? Wow, that's pretty cool. Do it one more time. Cool. Listen, I've got to do something because this is I can help.
Saw all those videos of teaching and that stuff, and I thought it would be cool.
That's good.
I tell all of my students that we can change the world. We can do something important. We can do something impactful. And they come in and they're just ready to jump in and try something new. And
Shay and her class have come and visited our class, and we get to talk to her and interact with her, and it's really cool to see her put on the hands that we've designed and use them and really react to that.
What I really want to do is to streamline everything and make it so it's actually the same size as her other hand. So it feels like it fits as a functional part of her body.
I knew that they would come up with better ideas than I could come up with, because that's what our young people and our students do here at UWM. They come up with ideas that are grand, and that brings a richness to the project that I can't. I'm too old in some ways to do that, to have a fresh perspective.
none of the students have ever 3D printed. None. And so that entire production process is different. None of them have ever used a foam cutter. So it's a really fun thing to see them all out of their element, but willing to work together and help each other.
There's a Google Plus community called Enable, and Enable is a group of right now about 400 members. So I can talk to people from around the world. I can download the files for it.
We had our students join Enable, and almost immediately people who I would be intimidated to talk to at first, would chime in on their sketches and their ideas. And the students, you could just see they came in and they were proud of the fact that they were part of this. And I think that that's really empowering.
I think that just that rapid pace at which we can develop and research, it's wonderful, it's marvelous.
Jenny Wu created earned her Bachelor of Art from Columbia University and Master of Architect from Harvard Graduate School of Design. As architect, Jenny has always worked in the intersection between art and architects. In 2013, Jenny was visiting Miami Art Basel. In her suitcase, she brought the 3 beautiful sculptural necklaces that are 3D printed herself to wear. She received incredible response while just walking around the street of Miami. So many strangers came to her and wanting to touch her necklace and even buy the pieces off from the neck. When she returned from Miami, Jamie spent over 1 year of R&D exploring how to use 3D printing to make high-end pieces. Then the fall of 2014, she launched the jewelry company, Lace. This photo shows the process of drafting, sketching, and 3D modeling, and prototyping, production, and production finishing from the lace. And Joshua Hacker is an American artist recognized for adapting and incorporating modern design and manufacturing technology with a traditional method and materials. His work has included 3D printing, video projection mapping, CAD design, digital sculpture, 3D scanning, and biometrics. He states, "My work is about pushing the limit of form and dimension to share the vision, an exploration into what can be made and how to accomplish it in an effort to tell a story or create experience. I incorporate digital tools, software, and technology as well as traditional mediums to create art that is unique and engaging." Here is one of the 4D video projection mapping event done by him. And Arthur Hershey received his MFA in metalsmithing and jewelry design from the Indiana University in 2005, and his BFA in craft material studies from the Virginia Commonwealth University in 2002. Arthur has managed, operated multiple digital fabrication metals facility, including MakerBot Innovation Center, and Digital Design and Fabrication Certificate Program and MIT Fab Lab. For the last 15 years, Arthur has taught digital fabrication design courses at multiple universities across the country, including Rhode Island School of Design in Providence, Virginia Commonwealth, and SUNY Newport. Arthur has been exploring pattern-making mechanism for wearable artworks. This image shows his study for accuracy and flexibility in making rings and necklaces. He designs, he makes, from small jewelry to the large installation, furniture, and packages. His studio practice combined traditional craft technique with digital fabrication technique, such as water jet cutting, 3D scanning, CNC router, rapid prototyping, and laser engraving. In addition, he makes one-of-a-kind wearable art jewelry pieces, production jewelry, and wearable interactive electronics. One of the artist's favorite technology is laser engraving and cutting. This series brooches with Arthur Hershey is an excellent example how he adopted a simple CAD-CAM in his traditional studio practice. The following short video shows his processes. Here he is. The Kaolin is an internationally acclaimed sculpture for turning ordinary objects into lacy artwork. The oil drum has very delicate and detailed generic lace motif, possibly done by Prisma cutting. This photo is from the Listen to Root exhibition. Do you remember I showed the photo I done 2015? So you can see how the artists kind of changed those way using technology. And so now when you look at in here, the exploration of a material to cut into the piece or jewelry has grown, including cloth, wood, metal, rubber, plastic sheet, and felt and various materials. And born and raised in Southern California, Hosanna Livio graduated from our program, the East Carolina University, with an MFA in metal design. She learned how to realize Illustrator and laser engraving cutting system, and with us at East Carolina University. As a result, Hosanna has delivered her concept in a more narrative context through the process. She has painted a red flower through the traditional enameling techniques. She stated in her art statement, "My work combines traditional metalsmithing techniques such as enameling and casting with newer technologies like digital manipulation to create intricate pieces that serve as a platform to explore this recreation of identity. Creating layered, detailed pieces allows me to find the balance in the chaotic, to attempt to exert control over the uncontrollable aspect of my life and in the world at large." And this is a brooch. The image is transferred on an enameled sheet plate by laser cutting, and the patterned frame are layered and fabricated. She described this work. "My experiences are not universal, but I hope to inspire an atmosphere of dialogue with my work to show that sometimes moments of pain and tragic can offer us the greatest opportunity for beauty and transformation." I loved her art statement. So what is the role of CAD/CAM in our craft world and art world? Are we disloyal to handcrafted technique if we consider using fabrication technology that can help us be more cost-effective or time-saving? I love making by my hand, but there's a time and place where we should work smarter and faster, especially considering the machines can work faster and better many times, and cheaper than we can do, like when you had multi-production. It isn't an easy topic to tackle. I don't think the answer is one way or the other. CAD/CAM or handmade or mixing the best of both. Questions? 그냥 한국말 하셔도 돼요. 저 한국말 정말 잘해요. 영어는 잘 못해요.
전통적으로 크래프트라고 하면 사람이 손으로 만드는 핸드메이드 기반으로 한다고 생각을 하는데 보여주신 거는 공업 디자인, 제품 디자인, 프로덕트 디자인과 더 가깝다는 생각이 들었거든요. 그래서 그런 부분, 그러니까 프로세싱, 매니팩처링 부분에서 어떻게 보면 크래프트 정신, 우리가 흔히 트래디셔널 크래프트 정신을 어떻게 살릴 수 있는지, 아니면 그 의미가 혹시 여기서 잃어버리지는 않는 건지, 그 부분이 좀 궁금합니다.
아주 좋은 질문인데요. 그 제가 맨 마지막에 한 게 그거에 대한 답을 찾는 중이죠. 왜냐하면 세상이 바뀌었으니까. 그러니까 아까 지금 이렇게 작가들 보여주듯이 어떤 작가들은 금속공예가 전공이었고, 어떤 사람은 건축이 전공이었고, 어떤 사람은 전혀 그거 해당 사항이 없었죠. 근데 이제 제가 여기서 포인트하는 건, 저는 뭐 어느 쪽을 지지하거나 그게 아니라 이런 일이 일어나고 있다는 거예요. 밖에서. 네. 그걸 포인트아웃 하는 거죠. 그리고 이제 모르죠. 만일 예를 들어서 처음에 산인이라는 게 나왔을 때, 그때 그런 비슷한 그걸 뭐라 디베이트가 있었죠. 그 포로가 아트냐 아니냐는 갖고, 그렇죠? 똑같이. 그리고 예를 들어서 꼭 공예품 하나만 만들어야 되느냐, 그걸 똑같이 찍어내면 이게 또 공예품이 아니지 않느냐. 근데 그거는 어떤 한 대답으로는 어렵죠. 계속 이제 그런 얘기가 오고 가겠죠. 네, 아주 좋은 질문이에요. 저도 답은 못 찾겠어요. 네, 감사합니다. 또 다른 분?
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 도자공예 공부하고 있는 석사생인데요.
네, 반가워요.
최근에 저희 도자공예도 이제 3D 프린터를 이용해서 작업을 많이 하고 있는데,
네.
보통 3D 프린터를 이용해서 작업을 하면 이제 3D 프린터로 기본적인 원하는 형태를 만들고 그걸로 이용해서 틀을 만드는 형식으로 작업을 하고 있어요. 근데 이제 3D 프린터 자체만으로도
네.
그 흙을 이용해서 하고 이렇게 쌓아 올리는 방식으로
네.
할 수 있는 방법들이 최근에는 생기고 있는 것 같은데.
네, 맞습니다.
네. 그래서 그런 재료적인 한계들이 최근에는 어떻게 이제 깨쳐 나가고 있는지, 그리고 그 재료의 다양성이 어디까지 방향성이 가고 있는지가 궁금합니다.
네, 너무 좋은 질문인데요. 사실 제가 여기 세라믹을 슬라이드 3개를 꼈었어요. 그런데 시간에서 내가 뺐어요. 그 지금 질문한 대로 3D 프린터를 진짜로 흙으로 이렇게 내는 그게 있어요. 그러니까 여기 저한테 이메일 주시면 내가 보내줄게요. 그래서 그게 지금 말하자면 그 세라믹 쪽에서도 그게 지금 퀘스천이에요. 어떻게 해야지 이게 창조적인 거며 이게 공업 디자인 가까운 건지. 근데 결국에는 제가 보기에는 프로세스가 중요한 게 아니고 퀄리티죠. 그렇죠? 예를 들어서 뭐 한 개를 만드나 몇 개나 그게 중요한 게 아니라 얼마나 그게 그 퀄리티를 가졌느냐의 문제인 것 같아요. 네. 제가 보내면 이메일 보내줄 거예요. 슬라이드가 있어요. 네. 좋은 질문, 아주 좋은 질문이에요. 그러면 질문 없으시면요. 네, 지금 있습니까? 지금 이거 엔딩 할까요? 맞아? 네.
또 추가적인 질문
네.
없으실까요? 네, 저는 사실 오늘 교수님 강의 보면서 공예에서는 이렇게 테크놀로지를 활용해서 새로운 가치를 찾고 있고, 또 디자인에서는 반대로 또 공예에서 익숙한 물성이라는 것에 대한 사실 탐구가 지금 많이 이루어지고 있잖아요. 그래서 어떻게 보면 이 공예와 디자인이 서로 다른 듯 하지만 어떤 공통된 가치를 가지고 나중에 굉장히 크게 협력할 어떤 결과물이 나오지 않을까 해서 굉장히 진짜 흥미롭게 봤습니다.
그래서 제가 지금 이거를 맨 마지막으로 하고 싶은 게 I just need to figure out how things work. This is from Dr. Ivan Sutherland. 이게 question이야. This is it. This is where we are. Even he talked about this maybe some years. 네.
네, 오늘 좋은 강연 해주신 우리 허미숙 교수님께 또 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
감사합니다.
네, 오늘 준비된 강연은 이제 마무리가 되었는데요. 네, 마지막으로 저희 IDCC를 위해서 이렇게 멀리서 이렇게 비행기를 타고 와주셔서 좋은 강연 해주신 저희 이제 연사님들께 최종적으로 감사 인사 드리고, 또 이 끝까지 자리를 지키며, 물론 너무 재밌었으니까 뜨지 못했겠죠. 네, 이 학생들과 또 교수님들께, 그리고 또 온라인으로 시청 중인 또 이제 우리 시청자분들께 감사 인사드립니다. 네, 저희가 IDCC가 또 너무 아쉬울 것 같아요. 근데 이게 마지막이 아니고요. 내일 또 연달아 있습니다. 그래서 오전에는 유튜브 스트리밍으로 보실 수 있고요. 또 오후에는 이 자리에서 또 1시 반부터 진행이 됩니다. 그래서 주말이라 좀 많이 바쁘시겠지만 많은 관심 부탁드립니다. 네, 감사합니다.